This is Rhonda Brooks of Farm Journal Media, and I'm here today at the Becker Underwood Media Day talking to Russ Berndt, who is a product manager for legumes for the company. And we've been talking about soybean inoculants, Russ. And I wanted to see if we could just kick this off by tell me a little bit about what the value is to inoculants in soybeans.
Sure. Inoculants are really critical to the soybean plant in terms that it is the key ingredient that the soybean uses in the symbiotic relationship to form nodules. And those nodules on the soybean plant's roots are what produce probably over half of the nitrogen needs for that soybean plant. So getting good effective nodulation with good nitrogen fixing bacteria is really one of the key steps that a grower needs to make sure they've incorporated in their management program to maximize their soybean yields.
Mm-hmm. What would you say at this point in the U.S., what percentage of U.S. farmers, soybean growers, are using an inoculant?
More and more are. Actually, the increase in use of soybean inoculants has been pretty dramatic in the last few years because more and more growers are getting other seed treatments applied to their soybean seed. And the use of an inoculant product with some of the new formulations, liquid formulations that are applied on seed has gone along with that increased use of other fungicides and insecticide products. So, we estimate somewhere around 50% or so of the U.S. Soybean acres are now being inoculated with a inoculant product, and we anticipate that will continue to grow in the future as more and more growers get into the regular use of this as just a good standard management practice, and as they see the value of some of these new biological combined products that incorporate an inoculant with other biological products.
Is that decision on when to use them made like when they're just making their seed treatment decisions, or when are most farmers making that decision to use an inoculant?
Sure. It's generally, again, since these are being applied at the same time as those fungicides and pesticides, insecticides are being applied, that's generally when the decision is being made, and that's either a recommendation from the seed treater who's putting on those products, or more and more now it's becoming growers knowing about these products and asking to have them applied to their seed by their seed treaters.
Okay. I know one of the things you mentioned during your presentation was that there are quite a few different types of inoculants out there, and that it's important to know whether or not the one you have is working. Tell me a little bit about how, as a grower, do I evaluate an inoculant in my soybeans?
Sure, and in terms of product selection, it is a little tough because you have to know something about the products that you're interested in. Because as you've probably seen today, there's different standards that you can use to apply to the products, and how they're produced is different between different products. One of the things we feel is very important is that the product be produced fresh each year, so that you're getting high numbers of these living creatures. They do die off in packaging over time, so if you're buying a product that's been on the shelf for a couple of years or so under different conditions that you may not know how it was stored, you may not be getting all the rhizobia that you need to have applied to that seed.
Yeah, you're saying they need to breathe, basically.
They need to breathe. These are living creatures. They need nutrients. They need air. They're just like you and me. They need some basic requirements to stay alive in that packaging, and then once they're on the seed too. So those are things that growers kind of have to know for themselves, and maybe even ask their seed treater about what products they're carrying, and how those products have been stored, and how old they are, and how they're packaged.
And the other thing you mentioned along that line too was that it's a process that's not well regulated here in the United States, but that it is in Canada. And you said also ask if those products, so the product they're using is used in Canada. Was that correct?
That's one of the things. Some companies may have products that they're selling here in the U.S., but not in Canada, and perhaps one of the reasons that they're not selling in Canada because the regulations are stricter up there, which may tell you something about the quality of their product. Another thing you can look at too is one of the key components in the Vald HP product that we sell is Integral, which is an EPA registered biofungicide product, and again, by being EPA registered, it's gone through the rigors of that registration process, so you can feel maybe a little bit more confident that it does what it claims it says it can do.
And in terms of once the product's out there in the field, I mean, it's on, and the soybean is nodulating. You were giving some tips on how to evaluate in the field whether or not the product is working.
Right. We encourage growers to go out there in the fields. Once that soybean plants reach that vegetative growth phase, dig up some plants carefully, check the roots for nodules. But even more than just checking for the number of nodules and the size of nodules, what growers need to do is take some of those nodules off and cut them in half and look at the color of the interior of the nodules, because a good nodule that's fixing nitrogen for the plant will be pink or reddish in color inside. If you see nodules that are greenish or gray or white, that means that nodule isn't effectively producing nitrogen for the plant. It's more or less just kind of living off the plant, but not doing its half in the symbiotic relationship of producing nitrogen. And a lot of times the rhizobia that you find just natively in the field are there because they've been kind of selected to survive, but not necessarily to fix nitrogen. So that's why we think it's such a great management practice, just to every year apply fresh nitrogen fixing rhizobia that you know are going to do the job.
Okay. And you said dig them up, don't pull them up. Don't pull up the roots.
Right, you need to do it carefully, so you don't knock the nodules off. Take a big clump of ground around the root surface, gently remove the soil or put it in water to soak the soil off so that you can see those nodules, and then check out whether they're fixing nitrogen or not.
And again, when did you say to do this?
Vegetative phase, somewhere around 6 weeks or so after they've emerged is a good time to check for nodules.
Okay. And can you give our viewers some sense of what kind of return on investment they get from using a good quality inoculant? Yeah,
that's another great thing, Rhonda, that we encourage growers, maybe if it's the first time they've used an inoculant product, maybe to do a comparison to a non-inoculated part of the field, to see what kind of difference in yield and performance they get. What we've seen with the Vald HP product now, with over 3 years of research testing, is a pretty consistent 2 to 3 to 4 bushel per acre advantage versus non-inoculated soybeans, and a good advantage over some of the competitor products out there too. So in terms of ROI, what we've seen in the data is that over half the time a grower has been getting a 5-to-1 return or better, which is a pretty good return on an investment for an input.
Okay, and don't shoot me for asking this, but what about the other 50% of the time?
Well, the other 50, they still may be getting a 3-to-1 return or a 2-to-1 return, which is still pretty. If you want to give me a 2-to-1 return on my money, I'll take that all day, Ron.
Okay, Russ. Well, thanks for talking to me. I sure appreciate it.
You bet. It's been a pleasure.